care of ourselves. Have you noticed that? I bet if I asked for a show of hands of ladies in this room that can sew, most of you would be seasoned. In other words, in other words, how many of you have taught your daughters how to sew? I don't know if my wife has taught our daughters how to sew. We've lost, in one generation, we've lost the ability to grow our own food.
You're in trouble.
I got a garden. I'm trying.
I don't want to get sidetracked, but I hope you get my point. My parents grew up on a farm. They could plant a garden any day of the week. Actually, we can plant a garden. But most of the young people right here in this church and across this country couldn't grow their own food if they had to. In one generation, we've lost the ability as a people to feed ourselves. Right on the cusp of needing to the worst. We've lost that ability. So we need to be preparing our children as well. So tangible assets, things that you can hold, things that somebody cannot just take away from you, that can't just disappear on you. Land is going to be valuable for a number of reasons. Some of you may say, well, hey, the real estate market's been down. I don't think land is worth that much. Well, that means that's a good time to buy some, because you're probably not going to want to buy it with the intent of selling it. Although if you have a large enough tract, you might sell parcels for other people to grow their own food. But land is one thing they ain't making no more of, right? And so you can't grow your own food if you don't have land to do it on. And it might even be a source of income for you. You might be able to rent out other parcels or plots or things like that. So land is a tangible asset that will be valuable in the future. C, beware of government-controlled accounts. I've already covered this, but we'll fill in the outline. Beware of government-controlled accounts. 401ks, IRAs, government-backed securities, government-backed home loans, government-backed investments. During a currency collapse, governments will often go into self-preservation mode and seize government-controlled accounts to stay afloat longer. Again, there's a track record for this. You can look at other countries around the world that have monetized their debt over the last 50 years, and in most cases that's happening. How many of you over the last year or so, remember the riots in Greece? You know the Greek government was seizing the people's retirement accounts and things like that. It happens. It's happened every time. I don't know any reason why it wouldn't happen in the United States. And as I said, Barack Obama has already signed a number of executive orders that gives him the ability to do that legally. So they're paving the way just in case that's a trigger they need to pull.
What if we took our money out of the IRA? What would we do with it?
Well, that's okay. All right. That brings up another question. So her question was, if I take my money out, what do I do with it right now? And before I answer that question, let me acknowledge another one. When should I do that? People ask me this all the time. When do I need to pull the trigger? When do I need to pull my money out and do something else with it? Here's the answer. I don't know.
I've heard that.
The Bible tells us what's going to happen, but the Bible speaks in seasonal terms. Not only do we not know the day or the hour that Christ will return physically, but even though we see these events lining up, the Bible is very specific about the events that will take place, but the Bible doesn't tell us the day, the week, the month, the hour that these events will occur. God tells us, though, that we are to know the season. He chastised His disciples for not being able to recognize the signs of the times. And if you remember in the Old Testament, the sons of Issachar were able to recognize the signs of the times and know what to do. The reason why I'm teaching this course is so that people can know what to do. When to do it, we're going to have to, you have to know what the Bible says is going to happen. We have to look around us. The reason that I will be pointing out prophecies that are being fulfilled right now. The reason I'm teaching you that Israel is the clock and how to look at Israel and tell time. The reason I want you to know that the dollar is collapsing, and I want you to know just enough about how the system is working so that you yourself can read headlines, can look at world events. You know now where we're headed, and my goal is to give all of us the ability to tell time a little bit better. I don't know exactly when the bottom will fall out. I really don't. I do know that the International Monetary Fund has already begun the process to bring the world to one world government. That could take as little as 5 years, and it might take as many as 15. So we could see one world currency before the rapture, and we may not. But what we can do is look at the world events around us that are fulfilling prophecy, get a sense of timing, and kind of do the best that we can. At the moment, many of us have got money tied up in retirement accounts, etc., that may still be earning a small yield, or that may still be, the value of those assets may still be going up. You don't want to pull those things out too soon. I don't blame you. But I tell you what, if you leave them in too late, you run the risk of losing it all. I also know that on a lot of those retirement accounts, if you pull it out too soon, there's a penalty. I'm with you. You know, we're in the same situation there. But at some point, the penalty incurred for removing it may be better than losing it all. So in terms of telling you exactly where that line is, I'm not sure. But we need to have our eyes open. We need to be aware. We need to be listening when the Federal Reserve Chairman speaks, and we need to know that he speaks with forked tongue. So you not only need to hear what he says, but you need to read between. What's that? She. Yes, she now. Yes, yelling she now. So we need to read between the lines. You need to be when China says I'm not buying any more T-bills from the United States. You need to know that we're one step closer. You know, when you hear other countries talking about when the Pope. And by the way, this was the last pope, not the current pope, but even the last pope says the current global economy is too fractured. We need to get to one world currency as quick as we can. Okay, you need to be listening to stuff like that, and you need to be putting two and two together. And I don't know that I can tell you exactly when the right time to pull your money out and convert it is. I'm struggling with that myself, but believe it or not, I'm trying to pay attention. Yes, ma'am. What's that? You know what? They may be safer. And by the way, that's the kind of question that a financial planner is going to be better to answer for you. How safe is an insurance annuity or something like that? And
Financial planner will tell you it's safer. They will say to you because it's insurance backed. It's safer. It's not FDIC, and the insurance has to guarantee that they hold that money. They do not. So they will tell you it's safer.
So that might be a possible answer. Can I take money out of an IRA or a 401k and can I put it into some type of annuity? There may be possibilities out there that I'm not aware of that will help. Yes, please. Dive in.
Okay. You can own annuities in an IRA, but that does not solve what her question was. When do you get money out of an IRA? The annuities, there are fixed annuities where you have a set interest rate. The security of those is completely dependent on the health of that insurance company.
But they're not government backed. But it is reliant on the insurance company.
Yes.
But we were talking about to get away from the government situation, to put it in a fixed annuity.
But you've got a different issue there. That those annuities may be safe from the government, but if the insurance company folds, you're back to square one.
Yes.
Of course, insurance companies are pretty flush, and insurance companies are well invested. And I think a lot of insurance companies are well invested internationally. But
Interestingly, there were actually none that I know of personally, and no large insurance companies that had any trouble with their balance sheet during the housing crisis.
wow, there you go.
AIG, we were never in any trouble with AIG with fixed annuities during that time.
These are, by the way, these are some great questions, and you're going to get into you might get into some more specific financial questions regarding, annuities or different financial markets or whatever that I may not be able to answer. I really wish, and by the way, there's a need here, obviously. There's a need here for not just a financial planner, but Christian financial planners that can begin to speak, because here's the thing, a lot of the financial advice that we get, myself included, is based on cyclical and historical patterns. It's based on the way the markets have functioned and yields and how we need to diversify and, well, you need to be 25% in this, 25% in that, 50% in this. Why? Because historically we see, in other words, most of the advice that we get is based on the assumption that things will always be as they've always been. That advice is mostly based on the fact that those historical models will continue to hold water in the future, and they will not. And so I wish that we did have some financial planners that could help us bridge the gap there a little bit better. Is he really? Is he? Does he understand? Is this something he would be a good one. I don't know him, but he'd be a good one. Does he really? He may be somebody you could talk to, or that we could talk to. The other half of your question, I want to keep moving here. The other half of your question was, what do I do with that money if I pull it out? We're kind of talking about some, insurance annuities might be an option. Again, tangible assets might be an option. I would say it also depends on how much you have. If you have $100,000, I would probably put it all in tangible assets that I can control right here. If you have $500,000, then I would probably set enough aside to take care of myself here, but then I would probably go ahead and try to invest some of the rest of it in either international markets or perhaps domestic opportunities that would be safe. But boy howdy, make sure you can protect yourself. And when I say that, make sure the government can't get their mitts or paws on it. And another way that the government, make sure it's in companies that are likely to thrive and not collapse. Insurance companies might be a good alternative because, as I said, most insurance companies are well invested, and many of them are well invested internationally. Except for health insurance.
Yeah, they in trouble.
All right, so let's keep moving. Roman numeral 4. Roman numeral 4. Own enough land to grow food. Own enough land to grow food. On your land? Yes. Yes, you do. Ms. Hinton said if you own land, you still have to pay taxes on it. That's true. Taxes, though, are cheaper than a mortgage. And taxes, I realize taxes can go up over time, but taxes are usually fixed for short periods of time. They're usually, if they go up annually. Food in the grocery store is going to go up exponentially, and once it starts to rise, it isn't going to stop. We may see a point to where the taxes on your land are actually cheaper than your grocery bill. I know that sounds hard to believe, but again, I mentioned this a week or two in the past. In Argentina, a gallon of milk was thousands of dollars. In Poland, a loaf of bread was $50,000. And most of us go, I can't believe that. But if the value of the dollar is virtually worthless, and by the way, you can go into other countries right now where their currency is worth very little and all their prices look very high. Why? Because the value of the goods doesn't change. And when that currency is so low in value, it takes a lot of it to make the purchase. So again, there's already working models and examples. There's already existing failures around the world right now that's where the things that I'm teaching you and telling you about are happening. Remember, this system is global. It's not just the United States. It's a global system. All right. So own enough land to grow food. Publix is not going to disappear, but it's going to get so expensive that you may not be able to shop there. The local grocery store, Kroger, they're not going to push over the building. It's still going to be there, but the average American may not be able to afford it. So if you can grow your own food, you're going to be a step up. And that's always been the case. Families that have a garden in the backyard, put away a little canning. Maybe you used to think that your grandma was kind of nuts for going through all that effort, But we're going to go back to that. And by the way, if you've got food on your own shelf, now you've also got something to share and barter with. Yeah, Bob.
I couldn't give away cucumbers this spring. Or last spring, I had cucumbers, nobody would take them.
Nobody would take them.
They get hungry enough that will.
Okay.
Bob, the day's coming.
Okay.
The day's coming.
All right.
So, again, be able to grow your own food. Now, by the way, somebody might be thinking, wow, I don't have any land. All I have is a tiny little backyard. With modern technology, there's lots of different ways to grow now. You can set up a hydroponic garden, and hydroponic gardens have a tremendous yield, and they can be set up in a very small amount of space, and it isn't brain surgery. You might be going, hydroponic garden, how do I do that? There's a YouTube video on it. Literally, it's really very easy to do, and with a very small plot of ground, you can grow a ton of stuff with a hydroponic garden. So there's lots of good ways to grow your own food, even if you only have a small plot. All right? HOA won't approve it. Yeah, you know what? You got a good point there. And I know many probably live in HOAs. People ask Dora Ann and I all the time, Brian, I hear you teaching this stuff. What are you doing? All right, Brian, do you put your money where your mouth is, and what steps are you taking? I'm taking every single one of these steps. And we bought a house just a few years ago with this in mind. And one of the criteria was, I will not be in an HOA. Because I don't want somebody telling me what I can do, when the time came. And so when we bought a piece of property, we bought a few extra acres. And by the way, we don't live on a small lot or 1 acre. We have a few, and we've got a lot of it's wooded, but we have a nice garden plot. And you know what? We bought probably less house than what we could have. The house is, now we like our home, but the house is a lot smaller. We had other friends that are probably kind of where we are and taking advantage of foreclosures and stuff like that bought a better, nicer house. But I was willing to have less house and more land because I can't chew on my house, when all this happens. So B, a larger plot can produce enough food for multiple families. C, a still larger plot might be used to rent or barter space to other families to grow their own food. Roman numeral 5, have multiple sources of water. Have multiple sources of water. Municipal water supplies may become unreliable, either in quantity or quality. In other words, there are municipalities, even in this country right now, going broke. Detroit's bankrupt. The whole state of California is virtually bankrupt. There are major cities around the country right now that, although you don't hear a lot about it in the news, they're hanging on by their fingernails. And at some point, it may be tough for the municipalities to continue to provide the services as we've been used to getting them. Either that or they may become extremely expensive. The city water supply may not shut down, but will it always be as clean as we would like for it to be? And you say, Brian, that just sounds